What is the strangest thing you've seen that you cannot explain? When I worked in the medical field, I had a dream one night about a patient of mine. A very kind elderly woman, whom I visited once or twice a week. In the dream she came to me, dancing, and called out to me that she wasn't hurting anymore. I was so happy watching her dance after seeing her decline for years. When I got to work the next morning, I told my coworkers about the dream, and later that morning we got the call from her daughter that she had passed away the night before. I cannot explain that, but I am glad I had told my coworkers about it before the call and not after, otherwise they'd never have believed me. Such a bizarre experience, but so wonderful to feel she was at peace. Fall 2009. I was sick, like super sick. It was a few weeks before my amputation and I was battling a severe bone infection. I was hopped on all kinds of antibiotics. I had a PICC line and would dose my antibiotics through these little balls, and pain medication. I'm a huge Yankee fan, so my best friend got us tickets for the ALCS game at Yankee Stadium. She pushed me around the stadium in a wheelchair with a shit ton of blankets on me. It was freezing. Just to put a smile on my face. My friend leaves our seats to go get some hot dogs and stuff. This is where it gets weird. As soon as she leaves, to my recollection, an older Irish gentleman sits by me. He offers me some of his spiked hot chocolate. But I said no thanks and explained that I was on a lot of medication. We begin talking and I told to him what was going on with my life. He asked if I was scared to have my leg amputated. And I told him that I was. I was really frightened of the unknown. He gave me some pretty valuable life advice and comforted me. He assured me that it would be fine. He told me that, if you have to be an amputee, try to be the best damn amputee that there is. My friend comes back with food and asks who I was talking to. There's no one next to me. I guess I must have hallucinated this, but IDK. It felt more like some kind of angel or being that came to me to let me know it would be okay. I guess my guardian angel is an Irishman with spiked hot chocolate. ETA. Not sure if this makes it more creepy or not, but the Yankees were playing the Angels in that series. I once met this young homeless guy. Probably about 10 years ago. Acted like he knew me. When I said I had no idea who he was, he said, "Isn't your name Beardmonger and you work in radio broadcasting?" I got right freaked out cause I had been applying to colleges for radio and there was no reason for him to know my name. I said no, but I've wanted to work in radio. Who are you? He responded saying it wasn't important and to ignore him as sometimes he gets confused between the present and the future. And just left. I never saw him again. It threw me off completely. I abandoned the idea to go into radio almost out of fear. I was driving home from work on the back roads and was driving behind a car that was the same make, model, and year of my car. Just a different color. Further down the road, we both get into the turn lane to turn left onto a long, straight road with open fields on either side. The car in front of me turns onto this road and I wait for a car to pass. And then turn as well. It takes less than 5 seconds. However, when I turn onto the road, the car that had been driving in front of me was nowhere to be seen. This road has no turn-offs and it's long and straight, so you can see pretty far ahead of you. The car had just vanished and I still think about it today. I have a dash cam now, but I wish I had had one back then because I question what actually happened that day. Edit. I am 100% sure the car didn't do a U-turn. The roads are really narrow. So they wouldn't have been able to complete the U-turn without having to make it a 3-point turn or drive partly in the field. I also would have noticed because while there was enough time to complete a 90-degree turn in front of the car that was coming from the other direction, there was nowhere near enough time to complete a 180-degree turn without either causing a wreck or something. After I turned onto this road and noticed the car was no longer in front of me, I looked all around me and could see the other car driving away behind me, but the car that looked like mine was nowhere to be seen. There was nowhere on that road where the car could have pulled off or I would have seen it. It was still very light outside, around 6:30 in June, and the road was surrounded by cotton fields, I believe, which do not grow high enough to cover a car. I have gone through every possible explanation and there just isn't a logical one. Squirrel wearing a leaf cape. Edit. Thank you everyone. Also, yes, this was a real moment. IDK if maybe the leaf was stuck or if the leaves were somehow knotted. But it was so quick. I saw a beer bottle dropped from a 13th floor window into bricks and it bounced. 4 Amish men in a room counting money with a money counter while simultaneously weighing out my ounce of weed. Just wasn't what I was expecting. I was driving away from a gas station. Out of nowhere a guy in a suit comes running up to my minivan and starts yanking the door. As if he knew me. He began pleading, "Come on. Let me in." Luckily my doors were locked. I asked him who the hell he was through my window. He looked genuinely surprised that I wouldn't let him in. After I refused to let him in, his facial expression inverted, as if he just realized something horrible. He let go of my car. Said something to the effect of, "You're one of them, aren't you?" Then he ran away behind the gas station and into the woods. Full suit and tie. Nice shoes. Extremely frantic in nature. Zero explanation. I'm praying it was some elaborate troll or meth or something. Because the look in that man's eyes was pure terror when I didn't let him in. A very badass Great Dane I knew, a former neighbor's dog, was so afraid of a month-old kitten that he ran into the deepest room of his home and didn't stop quivering and whimpering for several hours. For context, he wasn't a timid dog. Little over a month before the mentioned incident, a drunk man attempted to break into their home at night and the dog bit half of his left foot off. P.S. Rest in peace, Scoob. Standing outside of a convenience store. I saw 2 different cars park, about a minute or so apart, and go in the store. It was obvious the 2 didn't know each other, at least it seemed. After shopping, they each left in the other's car. Still can't explain it today without going down the CIA conspiracy route. Was sitting in my lounge room alone one night watching TV. Heard clear as day someone coming up the stairs barefoot. I thought it was just a family member coming up the stairs, but then had the "oh fuck" realization that I was home alone. For some reason I just sat there looking at the doorway waiting for whatever was coming up these stairs to walk through the door. Heard the staircase creaking and everything. Heard the bare feet get to the top of the stairs, step onto the tiles and take the 3 to 4 steps it would take to be inside of the doorway to the lounge room I'm sitting in. But nothing came through the door. Sat there for about 5 seconds waiting. Said to myself out loud, "Fuck dealing with that right now," and kept watching TV. I've heard other things like glass moving and footsteps and all that, but the second most notable thing I can't explain was me and my mum hearing something talk to our dog downstairs in a mumbled male voice we couldn't understand. If I heard that on my own I'd have just thought it was my brain playing tricks, but my mum also heard it. I was having a sleepover at home with a friend from school. We were watching a film and suddenly the weirdest thought comes to me. Her dog has just passed. Obviously I cannot just blurt that out. So I weirdly ask in the middle of the film, "Hey, by the way, how was your dog?" She was quite surprised obviously. I had never met her dog and she doesn't talk much about it. She just mentioned she had one. She answered that he is aging but well. We moved on, but I couldn't shake a weird feeling. Anyway, she goes home the next day and calls me after a while. She asked, "Why did you ask about my dog yesterday? How did you know? He passed away last night. Around the same time you asked about him." I was both shocked and unsurprised at the same time. I don't have an explanation. It seems like a weird coincidence since her dog was not something usually on my mind. It never happened to me again. Not sure this counts, I was in it. But wasn't happening to me. Pull into a fast food drive-thru in Odessa. TX, my first time there. My turn at the speaker. And I place my order. It's been a long drive. So I'm treating myself and being a little picky. Asking nicely. And building a customized meal. Cashier listens. And says, "Again? You ate all that already?" Me. Huh? Cashier? "Oh, I'm sorry. Someone who sounds just like you was just through here. Placed the exact same order." Me. "Hey. Cool. Weird. But cool." I get to the window and the girl looks at me with this exasperated expression. Opens the window and says, "It is you." Me. Cashier calls her manager over and points at me. Shows him the order. Says nothing. Manager. "Welcome back. Was there a problem with your order?" Me. "No. I haven't gotten it yet." Manager, clearly confused. "I made your order myself." Cashier points at time on receipt. Manager blinks. And says, "That's the same order." To her. Looks at me. Back at her. And says, "And that's him." Cashier. I said the same thing. Both of them looked genuinely upset. And confused. It got worse when I told them I had never been in Odessa before. As the manager was handing me my food, he laughed and visibly relaxed. The other guy had long hair. He explained, pointing to my cap, like, halfway down his back, "You just have a twin, I guess. With the same kind of car." His face when I took off my hat and showed him long hair. They might have been messing with me for fun. Shifts get long and people are creative. But if it was a game, they deserved careers in theater. Because they looked terrified. Yes. I looked around for copies of my car or self while I was in town. Nada. Edit. Whoa, and wow. Flushed thanks for the awards. Upside down face, no way I can keep up with all of this. Was 1992. Drove about 8 hours. No drugs or alcohol involved. Oh. And my hair was under my backward baseball cap and tucked under a flannel long-sleeve shirt, not impossible to see. And the angle from the drive-through window might have helped or hurt. Dunno. My 3-year-old daughter walked up to my husband one night and straight up said, "Grandpa's dead." Few moments later we get a call from my husband's sister saying that their father had passed away. Happened a few months back. Still creeps me out. Went hiking late at night with my buddy when something big and bright flew right over us above the tree line. It was so bright we couldn't even look at it, and whatever it was, it didn't make a sound. Actually, it was probably the most quiet moment of my life. I remember saying "what the fuck?" but no sound came out of my mouth. Only lasted a few seconds and it was over. When I was young, my parents and I relocated across the country to Maine. We lived in a very small town and our house was old. Beat up and on many acres deep in the forest. It had 2 stories, with the top story being the main level and the bottom story being the bedroom level. My bedroom had several large windows that looked out into the forest. I don't remember having curtains or blinds, but I'm sure I must have. Because my mother never forgot details like that when decorating my bedrooms as a child. But I must have left them open one night. I remember waking up in darkness, with a faint glowing orb of light hovering just outside my window. I watched it in utter terror as it went slowly across one window. And then the next, before pausing. Flashing briefly into my bedroom. Before shifting into the third and final window and disappearing altogether. I was so upset by the ordeal that I went and woke my parents up. And my stepfather stormed the backyard with his gun in hand. There was nothing and no sign of the strange orb. My eyes are watering as I write this. Deep down, as an adult looking back, I realize that orb was anything but magic. It was someone's flashlight. It never happened again. But I'm still afraid of having window blinds open at night. I was driving one night in a really foul mood and speeding. Like when I say speeding, I mean at least 25 over the limit. Anyway, this car gets behind me and for some reason I can just tell it wasn't a cop. It was a full tinted Chevy truck with weird lights on it, like comically large aftermarket front headlights. Once it got behind me I got a really eerie feeling I can't explain. Like my body just knew something was wrong. Anyway, I figured if it was a cop they would light me up for speeding, but for some reason they just kept pace with me. Also speeding themselves. So at this point I'm getting a little weirded out, so I turn off the freeway and they follow me. I turn into a gas station and get out. I figure if I'm going to get axe murdered, at least the cameras will pick it up and give my family some closure. Something just didn't sit right with me. I knew something was up. As I'm getting out of my car, the truck rolls its windows down. And what I saw still haunts me to this day. It was a heavily disfigured guy, the only likes of which I can compare to that guy Rocky Dennis from the movie about the guy with a crazy disfigured head who falls for that girl who loves him for him and not the abomination that is his face. And he starts to motion me with his finger like telling me to come closer. I don't care if he was going to give me the winning Powerball numbers, there was no way in hell I was going to approach his car. I bolt inside the gas station. At this point my whole body is shaking. I try and tell the clerk what's going on as they stare at me, probably thinking I'm drunk or high off my ass as my story doesn't make any sense. I go to look outside and the truck is gone. I still have nightmares to this day. Was driving home from work one afternoon with my brother and cousin in the car. As we were sitting in traffic I noticed high up in the sky and way out in the distance a small motionless black square. I pointed it out and both my brother and my cousin spotted it quickly, so I know it wasn't in my head. It just remained still for about 45 minutes and then the sun had set and it was too dark to spot it any longer. It just stayed in the exact same spot the whole time, and while it was really far away you could still tell it was a perfect square shape. Once I got home I went online to see if there were any mentions of it anywhere, and there was nothing. To this day I still think about it and wonder WTF I was looking at. When me and my best friend were teenagers. We were walking home during the wee hours of the morning when a drunk guy basically acted like we knew him and invited us to eat. For some reason, we actually came with him and we ate at this 24/7 joint. Where he told us about his adventures around the world. Showed pictures, etc. We hung out until it was around 5 a.m. and walked home together. I have no idea who he fucking was. I still don't. My grandfather told me a really cool story. There's a couple of things that grow or rot in trees that glow. Google foxfire. He saw an owl completely covered in this stuff flying around at night sometime in the 1930s. Edit. Ye blew up. Thanks for all the glowy stories. I miss my grandpa. And for the lulz I didn't even think of Mozilla. I was once standing in line at Target. A mother and her, I guess, 3-year-old were in front of me in the checkout lane. I never met them before in my life. The child was riding in the shopping cart and the mother went forward to better unload it. The child looks dead at me. Smiles. Laughs and said my first name. Very clearly. Twice. I have an uncommon first name. Which made it even stranger. Edit. No. We didn't have name tags. Just blank white keycards for entering locked areas. The dress code was strictly professional suit and tie. On weekends. I never was into being some company's walking billboard. My dad, sister and I all saw something that wasn't an animal and wasn't human. This was in winter 2015 in rural Saskatchewan. We were driving and it ran out in front of us on the road. It was so fast it was a dark blur, but we all agree we saw long gangly limbs like a deer, but it had human-looking arms and legs. We still talk about it. When I was in my 20s in the early 1990s I had a car accident that kept me in hospital for about a year. It was a Catholic hospital and most of the nursing staff were nuns, and besides the normal checks they regularly just stopped in to chat and see how I was doing. Early one morning there was a knock and this nun came in that I hadn't seen before and introduced herself as Sister Greta. A member of the nursing staff. She sat on the side of the bed and we spoke for a few minutes, then she asked if she could say a prayer for me. She held my hand and said a prayer, then wished me well and left. About 5 minutes later there was another knock and one of the regular sisters came in to say hi. I remarked it was going to be a good day because I'd already had one visit from Sister Greta and now I was getting another one. She said there wasn't a Sister Greta on the staff and there was only 2 sisters around. It being so early, I pointed to the bed which clearly showed where she had been sitting and described her and the habit she had been wearing, now getting a bit unnerved. The sister basically shrugged and bustled off. She came back about half an hour later with a book about the hospital's history and showed me a picture of some nuns from the 50s. Their habits were exactly the same as Sister Greta's that I described. Turns out that patients regularly mentioned talking to nuns in old garb that definitely weren't part of the current staff. I never saw her again or anything similar while I was there. Kind of freaky but not overly disturbing. I can't really explain it, but I guess it's the sort of ghost story I'm okay with. If that's what it was. Edit. Okay, heaps of cool questions that I'll reply to, but a couple of common ones. No. I'm not religious by any stretch. I believe in getting a good night's sleep. Steak. And the love of a good woman, or man. Or whatever lights your candle. I made some belief calls in my mid-teens and have stuck to them. Nope. Not once did anyone try and save or convert me. In fact, my father marked the religion question as an A on the admission documents and neither of us were ever questioned on it. If a prayer was ever said, I was asked first if that was okay, and a few times, I did decline. Trust me, when you have been assisted to shit while lying down on your back with your legs in traction and experienced the cleanup operation afterwards, it takes some time to want company again. The first few weeks I was on meds. Morphine and tramadol being the options on the menu. They bunged me up, see bedpan comments above, and the docs warned me about dependency, so. With the exception of post-surgical relief. It was Panadol, Disprin, and Doxapol, so. If I remember right. The sisters all lived on the top floor of the hospital, so. Technically yes. There was someone living in the attic, smiley face. Could the nuns have been pranking me? Absolutely. Despite perceptions, they are a funny bunch. Enjoy a good laugh. Read comics and watch Star Wars. Only. There was never a, "Ha. We got you." Yup. It absolutely could have been a hallucination, ignoring the bum imprint on the bed. And yup, it absolutely could have been sleep paralysis. And yup, I absolutely could have actually dreamed it all. But Op asked what strange stuff had happened that I couldn't explain. No. I don't think she was Cthulhu or one of his followers, but I've been wrong about such things before. Smiley face. Edit. So a few more things. I'm originally from, and this happened, in Zimbabwe. The hospital is called Mater Dei, and no, I haven't found any record of a Sister Greta working there. The quick summary of what happened was that I was asleep in the back of a pickup on the way back from a rugby tournament. We had a head-on with a drunk driver and I went through the back of the cab. The windscreen hit the other car and ended up in the bush some meters away. Multiple internal injuries, lacerated liver, kidney damage and collapsed lung. Broken bones, ribs, jaw, collarbone, hip, and 3 crushed vertebrae, T12, L1, L2. The spinal cord was intact but compressed, hence the lack of feeling and movement from my mid-torso down. The surgeries were to wire shit like my job. Decompress and remove bone fragments from my spinal column and fuse the fect vertebrae. I am now 2 inches shorter than I was and have a curve on my back that Quasimodo would be proud of. Despite this, I was the lucky one, and that's all I'm going to say about that. This being where it was. Insurance and medical aid were really not much use. My dad paid most of the bills by emptying his savings and taking out a loan. And the rugby community pitched in as well. The hospital trust waived a bunch of the cost too. It was a prick of a thing money-wise, but I have managed to pay back or pay forward at all. I don't quite get the "nun plays a wild prank to raise money" thing, but okay, smiley face. I was never asked for money other than the bills which they let us to pay over. Literally. Years. I also don't quite get the "nun plays a wild prank to convert souls." Some morphine in my drip and a tart in a robe with a halo would have worked way better, and that's just off the top of my head. There was no attempt to save my soul. None. Last thing about this, being a nurse, or any other medical job, is a nasty, hard, selfless, and rewardless job from what I saw, and yet that is what they did. They cleaned up my shit. They helped me vomit. They sat while I cried my heart out for my friends and for my own future. They patiently put up with me when I got ranty and ravey. They found me blood when I needed it, because I have a stupid blood type. And they never ever told me to pray, look to God, count my blessings, thank the saints or anything like that. They asked their God to help and then let me lean on them. Anyone calling bullshit, good on her. I wouldn't believe it either, and that's cool. Opinion is a wonderful thing. Okay. Way too many of you are worried by some inside knowledge I may have on Cthulhu. I don't. I just accidentally holidayed at Relia 1 year, and let's just say the brochures didn't match the experience. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.